Thank you, Rachel. I just want to sit in my chair and go, for a while. Thank you for being fully human and fully divine. And Heidi, thank you for your wonderful music. And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And thank you for inviting me to be in your neighborhood. There's been a few changes since I was here last. Even Highway 13 is different coming off of 35W than it was. It's like, whoa. And the sanctuary is different. Y'all just keep evolving. Just keep evolving. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Yeah, I think so. So, the spiritual practice of saying no. I probably have to think that all of us here are pretty darn good at saying yes, aren't we? I mean, how often are we told to be positive, to say yes to life, to walk through that open door every time it's there, to let no opportunity go unanswered? Say yes to life. And sometimes we have to say no to say yes to life. Sometimes we have to do that. And if I were one of those high-paid motivational speakers that gets $1,000 an hour at some corporation or more, I mean, I heard some motivational speaker, his minimum fee is $100,000 a day. Plus expenses, of course, and only staying in the best hotel and only flying first class or in a private jet. Yes. John's ready. I'm sure I could give you all kind of motivational reasons for saying no more often. But I'm going to let someone else kind of say that. And by the way, do you have a key on your keyboard that says no? My laptop doesn't have that. Either my outer one or my inner one. I have to look for that one somewhere that says no. But there's a very successful entrepreneur that all of us know about. And I think kind of sums it up in a very wonderful way about the power of no and the importance of no. And that's my motivational quote today, at least from that end of the perspective. So, any of you know this guy or know of him? What's he say here? Those of us that can read it, let's read it. The hardest thing when you think about focusing, you think focusing is about saying yes. No! Focusing is about saying no. And when you say no, you piss off people. Can you say that word here? or even no. This is one of my big challenges. I don't want to make people mad or upset. I don't want people to unlike me. I don't think I'm quite alone in that. One of our big fears. Well, so I love history and I love origins. And that way I'm a bit of a fundamentalist. And a fundamentalist means to me that we go back to origins and find out, well, how did it all begin and what's the purpose and the energetic presence of that? And John mentioned that I've been doing energy work for over 30 years. And I'd like for you to just be aware in your humanness and your fully human and fully divineness of what you experience energetically as we go through, I think, a fascinating little story. And also to use your imagination as we go through this little story. And it's a story about yes, and it's also a story about no. Now, if I were to ask you to imagine the hanging gardens of Babylon, could you do that? The hanging gardens of Babylon go back several thousands of years into the Fertile Crescent, present-day Iraq. And there were a people there that started to evolve in ways that other people on the planet hadn't evolved yet. And we call that place, those people, the cradle of civilization, the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and the Euphrates River in present-day Iraq. In fact, I kind of wonder sometimes, what are we doing mucking around over there? The origin of human civilization, whatever that means and all that it means, is right there where all those troubles are right now. Things are being stirred up, aren't they? And this little story is the first written myth in all of human history. And we know who the author is. And the author is the first person that is the first written author of a myth in our world, at least in this level, is a woman. We know her name, Enheduanna. And she was the daughter of Sargon the Great. The first person who anointed himself King of Kings. And this all transpired about 2300 BC. So 4,300 years ago. In what we call now ancient Sumer, which is the Fertile Crescent. And Sargon the Great was somebody. He was also the first one to create what we now call an empire. There were all these little city-states 4,300 years ago along the Tigris and Euphrates River, and he became the ruler of one of those city-states and said, you know, there's all these other city-states around there, and I want them. He had an ego. And some say he had a calling. I had to share this. His mother, when he was born into a relatively modest family. There were the royals, and then there was everybody else, and he was one of the everybody else's. But she had a knowing that he was going to be special, and that other people might have that knowing that he was going to be special. And she knew that his life was in danger, particularly as he was an infant. So to help preserve his life and put him in the hands of the gods, she walked to the Tigris River, wove a basket of reeds, sealed the basket with pitch, lined it with one of her shawls, and put her infant son into that basket and set him adrift in the river. Now, does that story sound familiar to any of you? Yeah. And it takes place over 1,000 years before the time of Moses. As my farmer grandmother used to say, nothing is new but what has been forgotten. And he was picked up by a member of the royal household, the wife of the head of the Orchids, which were real important, and taken into the royal household and became King of Kings. Interesting story. Anyway, he had this precocious daughter named Enheduanna, and he said, you know, you're quite a young lady. I'm going to make you the high priest of every temple in my empire. And there were 42 city-states, 42 temples, and she became the high priest of all of those city-states and temples. And she commissioned, and we think maybe even wrote, 42 hymn songs, one for each of those temples. And she wrote the first written down myth that we know of. And it's the story of Inanna. It's the story of Inanna. Inanna, the queen of heaven and earth. And we have a slide with an image of Inanna. This is from a little seal, scroll seal, little round carved seal that they would put into the hot wax and seal their documents with. And that's Inanna over there on the left, sitting there, and that's her father, Enki, the god of wisdom, on the right. And that's the tree of life in the center. Now this dates back over 4,000 years. And Inanna, the queen of heaven and earth, was a principal deity of Sumer. It's called Sumer, from 4,300 years ago. And what she is receiving here is the staff and the measuring line of a me. Have you ever heard the term meme? M-E-M-E? Yeah, John has, some of you have. And I think it comes from, it's similar to the idea of a gene, only it's a meme. Where a gene is something physical in our body, sort of physical anyway, it's also metaphysical. But a meme is a capacity, an idea, a concept, an ability, and a belief. So there are lots of memes at work in our culture. You all have a similar meme as far as your spirituality, or you wouldn't be here. Well, this first story is the story of how humans got their memes. And in ancient Sumer, they called it me, M-E. The story of how Inanna got the me's for her people. What is it that makes us human? What is it that makes us human? What is it that separates us from the animals? I know we have many animal qualities. I heard the other day that jealousy was an animal quality that we haven't outgrown yet. Interesting. We have many animal qualities, but yet we are different. And what makes us human? What makes us human? Well, this is the story of how Inanna, once she got her power, as a young girl, there's a story about how she gets her power, and then the second story is how she gets the me's for her people so that they can become more fully human and create the first civilization. So I'm going to read little parts of that story. It kind of goes on a while. The me. So Inanna placed the shagura, the crown of the step, on her head, and she was called to go to her father Enki, the god of wisdom, on behalf of her people. And she said, remember, these words are from 4,300 years ago, translated into English. I, the queen of heaven, shall visit the god of wisdom. I shall go to Abzu, the sacred place in Eridu. Eridu is the heavenly kingdom where Enki lives. I shall honor Enki, the god of wisdom, in Eridu. I shall utter a prayer to Enki at the deep, sweet waters. Now, how important are deep, sweet waters in the land of the Fertile Crescent? And so Enki, being a god, said, oh, my daughter's coming. Oh, how nice. And he called his Sukal, his right-hand man, Isimud, and said, Isimud, get the best food and the best drink ready, because my daughter is coming. And so they did, and the daughter, and she shows up, and she got there by sailing the boat of heaven that was anchored at the white quay, the heavenly quay, in Ur. Remember Ur? Any of you do remember your Bible studies? Ur, where Abraham came from? Yeah. She sailed from Ur in the boat of heaven and arrived at her father's doorstep. And so they greeted, they sat down, they ate, and then here's the words. Enki and Inanna drank beer together. I guess this is before wine. They drank more beer together. They drank more and more beer together. Now here we are on Sunday morning talking about drinking beer as a sacred thing to do. With their bronze vessels filled to overflowing with the vessels of Urash, mother of the earth, bronzes of the earth, they toasted each other, they challenged each other. Enki, swaying with drink. So what's she done? What has she done? She got him drunk. Now, can you just see her pouring some of her beer onto the plant? She got him drunk. And he stands up and he's swaying and he says, In the name of my power, in the name of my holy shrine, to my daughter Inanna I shall give the high priesthood. I shall give godship, the noble enduring crown, the throne of kingship. I shall give this to my daughter. Now, how do you suppose she responded? Oh, gee, Daddy, that would be kind of nice. Oh, well, if you really want to, I guess I'll take that. Are you sure? No. She said a three-letter word. Yes. And then, I take them. Unequivocally. Yes, I take them. And they loaded them into the heavenly boat. And Enki raised his cup and toasted Inanna a second time. In the name of my power, in the name of my holy shrine, to my daughter Inanna, I shall give truth. These are big things. Listen to the descent to the underworld, whoa, and ascent from the underworld. And then the next one, the art of lovemaking. Wow. 14 times Enki raised his cup to Inanna. 14 times he offered his daughter 5 me, 6 me, 7 me. And what did she say each time? Can you say that? Yes. And you got to do this. Yes. Yes. Now, can you feel the energy of yes? There's an energy there, isn't there? There's an emotion, there's a feeling, there's an energy, there's a presence. Yes. I take them. Unequivocal. Just yes. And then it goes on to give all the me that Enki gives to his daughter, Inanna, that she's taking back to her people. And I won't read them all. We're not quite sure how many there's a whole bunch, but 64 have come down to us. Now that's an interesting number. And if you do the I Ching, there's 64 hexagrams in the I Ching, which is a 5,000-year-old oracle, divination oracle. 64 is the number of codons in our DNA. 64 is a very significant number in spirituality and in life. And I won't go through them all by any means. Forthright speech, slanderous speech, adoring speech. The hero, the art of power, the art of treachery, the art of straightforwardness, the art of lamentations, the art of deceit, of a rebellious land, the craft of the woodworker, the craft of the copper worker, of the scribe, of the smith, of the leather maker, of the builder, the perceptive ear, the power of attention, purification rites, dismay, and then the last 4, which are the most important to him, he saved them till last. He gave me counseling, heart-soothing, the giving of judgments, and the making of decisions. The very last one is the making of decisions. If you only have a yes, how good are you at making decisions? And then all the me had been loaded into the boat of heaven, and Inanna and her right-hand woman, maybe I should say left-hand woman, Ninshabur, set sail back to Uruk, or to Ur, with the me of civilization for her people. Now, after they had left, when the beer had gone out from the great God of wisdom, Enki looked about the Abzu. The eyes of the king of the Abzu searched Eridu. King Enki looked about Eridu and called out for his servant Izimud, saying, "My Sukal, Izimud." And he says, "My king, I stand to serve you. What do you want?" The high priest, godship, the noble and enduring crown. Where are they? What do you suppose Izimud says? Well, you gave them away. They're with your daughter. She's sailing back to Uruk with all this. 14 times Enki questioned his servant Izimud. 14 times he said, my king has given them to his daughter. My king has given all the meat to his daughter Inanna. So he's sober. What do you suppose happens next? He says, go! Take the income creatures. Let them bring the boat of heaven and all the meat back to Eridu. So Izimud takes the income creatures. We're not quite sure what they are, but they're some kind of a nasty critters that are going to be the enforcers. So he hustles after Inanna, catches her up with her, and says, my queen, your father has sent me to you. Your father's words are words of state. They must not be disobeyed. You must give back the meed of godship, of the royal crown, on and on and on. So what does she do? Well, that's what Daddy wants. She looks him in the eye and says, two-letter word. No. I don't think she said it quite that way. I don't think she quite. And then she said, and I'm keeping them. No. And I'm keeping them. Now that's a different energy than yes, isn't it? No. Can you feel that? No. And then here comes the income creatures, and Inanna and her Sukal, they fight him off. Izimud goes back to the king. She fought me off. 6 times Izimud went back to get the mead, each time with more nasty creatures. And 6 times she said, no, I'm keeping them. It wasn't just a one-time chow. No. And 6 times they fought him off. All the time sailing down the river. And then they arrive at Uruk, to the White Quay, the royal quay at Uruk. And after the 6th time, Izimud goes back. And reports in, and the king says, my king Enki, I stand to serve you. The boat of heaven is now at the White Quay at Uruk. And the king says, oh, well, go. She has aroused wonder there. The queen has aroused wonder at the White Quay. Inanna has aroused wonder at the White Quay for the boat of heaven. He's now saying, it's okay. Makes me wonder if it was all said. He's the God of wisdom. He gave him to her, and then he says, I want him back. She had to fight for him. She had to make it through the dark to get to the light, the white quay. And then an interesting thing happens. The holy me were being unloaded. As the me which Inanna had received from Enki were unloaded, they were announced and presented to the people of Sumer. And we know that each year there would be this ceremony. The boat would come sailing down the river and dock at the White Quay, and then they would get out. I don't know what they had, but they would announce each of the me every year to revitalize themselves as humans and divine. Listen to this. Then more me appeared, more me than Enki had given Inanna. And these two were announced. What's happening? More me appeared. So she went through the whole process. She said yes, she loaded them up, she hauled them away, she fought for them to keep them. And there's more when they get there than when they started. You do your work. You create fertile ground, and more appears than you could have known. And these two were presented to the people of Ur. Wow. And here's the affirmation. In the name of my power, in the name of my holy shrine that Enki, the god of wisdom, gives to Inanna and her people. Let the me you have taken with you remain in the holy shrine of your city. Let the high priest spend his days in the holy shrine in song. Let the citizens of your city prosper. Let the children of Uruk rejoice. The people of Uruk are allies of the people of Eridu, heaven and earth. Let the city of Uruk be known as the city of greatness. Wow. So we were given the capacity for yes, and equally important, we were given the capacity for no. Equally important. I have another quick little story. I studied for quite a few years with a wonderful woman named Rosalind Briere. Some of you probably have. I brought her over here several times. She's in LA. And Rosalind is into martial arts. And her husband, this was back when I was studying with her at the time, had this little thing that kind of irritated her. He would like to sneak up behind and pinch her on the butt. She hated that. She would say, don't do that. I hate that. Whether he forgot or whatever, every once in a while. So she was talking about this with her other members at the dojo, and her what's the right word? Sensei heard her and said, come here, I'm going to teach you a technique. And the next time he does it, you use the technique and you'll break his arm. And she said, I don't want to break his arm. He said, do you want him to stop? Yes. Is he stopping when you ask him? No. Learn this technique. So he was a sensei. I don't know. So she practiced and learned the technique and got it down. She didn't say anything to him. You have to touch me again, I'm going to break your arm. She didn't say a word to him about what she was doing. And what do you suppose didn't happen? She never got pinched again. When we say no, it has to be like Inanna said no. It has to be in our energy field. And then the other will know that we mean it. Until we say no, there's going to be violence. There's going to be abuse. And meaning. From within our being. Within our being. I have a quote from Barbara Brown Taylor, one of my heroes. If you know who Barbara Brown Taylor is, she's a former Episcopal priest, a woman obviously, who took a little tiny church in northeastern Georgia, up in the mountains, and created, well, the church seats about half as much as this sanctuary. By the time she was done, she had to have 4 or 5 services every Sunday. And then she burned out. And she became a professor at a local college, and I started writing books, and she was here in August. Those of us that can, let's read this. I think that's kind of profound. The ability to do many things at high speed is not only an adaptive trait, but also the mark of a successful human being. As much as most of us complain about having too much to do, we harbor some pride that we are in such demand. We admire people who are able to keep more balls in the air than we are. And when they drop one, we instinctively avert our eyes. We feel their pain. Meanwhile, technology opens up more opportunities than ever to say yes. It is hard to be a lone revolutionary, yet that is what you become when you start saying no. You rise up against your history, your ego, your culture, and its ravenous economy. I decided to get on Facebook to see what my sons were up to. And I have fallen into the trap of opening up, and then I just keep scrolling. Oh, look at this video. Oh, look at that video. Oh, and the next thing I know, it's a lot of time has gone by. I'm channeling in the wrong way. The wrong way. One more, well, two more little quotes and we're done. So I like this quote a lot. A being is free only when it can determine and limit its activity. Wow, we don't think of freedom in those kind of terms, do we? We are free only when we can limit and determine our activity. And many of us have a model for that. If you were to think of a critter that many of us spend a lot of our lives with, that often lives with us, that is a model for determining its own freedom and activity. Yeah. Does it look like that cat's ready to say yes? Then the last little slide and quote. Saying no can be the ultimate self-care. It takes courage sometimes. It takes tapping into that original energy that is there in that first myth of human history. To say no. And it takes some wisdom. Remember where it came from, the God of wisdom. The wisdom to say yes and the wisdom to say no. It's a huge challenge for me. It's a huge challenge for us in our times. And it's an important spiritual practice. May the source be with you. May the source be with you.